135, contact New York Center.
The World Trade Center, tower number 1 is on fire. The whole outside of the building was just a huge explosion.
The worst thing for me was just being able to do nothing but watch it go on.
One report said, and we can't confirm any of this, that a plane may have hit one of the 2 towers of the World Trade Center.
September 11, 2001, 8:46 a.m. American Airlines Flight 11 crashes into the North Tower of the World Trade Center.
People are jumping out the windows.
As confusion reigns in lower Manhattan, another plane, United Airlines Flight 175, is at cruising altitude 50 miles northwest of New York City.
United 175 now comes up on my frequency, and now I am tracking him.
But the next 17 minutes bring confusion and fear for the crew and passengers on board.
There's blood in the aisles, there's dead people.
17 minutes that touch the lives of all involved with Flight 175.
He told me that he thought a stewardess had been killed.
What I saw was a giant aircraft come in eye contact, eye level towards me.
17 minutes that are the ultimate challenge for the men charged with keeping the skies safe.
At that point, I got very scared because I realize now that this is something that we have never seen before.
17 minutes that will become a turning point in history. (6 a.m., September 11, 2001. As the day's first flights take to the skies, controllers are working the morning shift at Boston Air Route Traffic Control Center in Nashua, New Hampshire. Among them, John Hartling, a 25-year veteran who used to handle air traffic in the Air Force.
That morning I got to work at 6:30. It was normal time. And the mood was quiet. It was a Tuesday morning, beautiful morning.
Boston Center controls most high-altitude airplanes over the eastern states into New York. Close to 6,000 flights are routed through Boston Center each day. For air traffic controllers like Hartling, keeping thousands of planes moving safely and on time is a delicate balancing act. The stakes are high and the pressure unrelenting. This morning, it seems like business as usual.
It was somewhat busy that morning. A little bit after 8, and you get a lot of departures out of Boston.
And you take that 04 Sierra Romeo, right?
Around 8:25 a.m., after working planes for more than an hour, Hartling gets some disturbing news. An American flight is acting erratically.
One of the controls from another area was standing behind me as well as the supervisor, and they said, "We think there's something wrong with this aircraft. I believe it's hijacked."
As Hartling and the other controllers watch, the plane, headed from Boston to Los Angeles, goes silent, then makes a sudden and unexpected turn to the southeast.
I've never experienced anything like this, but it was a situation where, as air traffic controllers, can talk to airplanes. We have control. They're going to do what we tell them to do. And we felt at that particular point we had no control over anything.
An hour earlier, at 7:20 a.m., things seem perfectly normal for United Flight 175, scheduled to depart at 8 a.m. from Boston to Los Angeles. Flight attendant Robert Fangman is running late and arrives just in time to greet passengers.
He really almost missed it and got in there, checked out his surroundings to see, okay, who's on the plane this morning. He loved people. He loved meeting people. He just was a very open, kind-hearted soul that was drawn to people.
He jumped on and off planes like we would jump on and off a bus. He took such a big cut in pay just to do what he loved, and he was so happy about it.
Also looking forward to flying that morning is marketing executive Peter Hansen. Peter, his wife Sue, and their 2.5-year-old daughter Christine are all on Flight 175, seated in rows 19C, D, and E. It will be Christine's first plane ride.
Peter had business trip to make, and Sue decided to go along. as a vacation to see her family and bring Christine to see the family. They were so together, a unit of one. Just a lovely, lovely feeling when you were with them because you knew that there was so much love that they had for each other.
Seated a few rows in front of the Hansons in 15A is 38-year-old Brian Sweeney. Sweeney, a defense contractor and former Navy Top Gun pilot, is heading to LA on business and has taken Flight 175 several times before.
He had his standard, Sweeney uniform on, his jeans and his denim shirt and his baseball cap, and that's how he traveled, and it's just who he was.
He loved life. He was a very, very proud American. He was a born leader, and he showed that in many ways.
His last words to me were, "I love you and I'll see you Thursday." Like we do every day when we say goodbye to people, obviously you just don't even think twice about it.
Also boarding Flight 175 that morning is 23-year-old Marwan Al-Shehi, who is in first class, seated in 6C. For Al-Shehi, this will be anything but a routine flight.
Marwan Al-Shehi places a call at Logan Airport to the other hijacking team, which was headed by Mohammed Atta.
Presumably their last conversation before they each boarded their separate aircraft. I think the purpose of the phone call was to let Atta know that Shehi was in position and ready to go.
Well, Mohammed Atta was also flying to Los Angeles that morning from Boston's Logan Airport, but he was aboard a different flight, Flight American 11, which was scheduled to leave like 175 around 8 o'clock that morning.
Al-Shehi and his 4 companions passed through security without incident. Al-Shehi is from the United Arab Emirates. So too is Fayez Bani Hamad. Bohamsa and Ahmed Al-Ghamdi, as well as Mohand Al-Shehri, are from Saudi Arabia. The 4 so-called muscle hijackers are not at all physically imposing. Most are under 5'7", but they all have practiced how to kill by using knives to slit the throats of camels.
They carried knives. The knives were acceptable by FAA standards. They were utility knives, apparently. None of these guys were even selected for additional screening. They just walked through.
Al-Shehi and his men, like the other hijackers that morning, were dressed in Western-style clothes, were neatly coiffed, and basically looked as innocuous as they could.
Al-Shehi's men are scattered around him in seats 2A, 2B, 9C, and 9D, positions deliberately chosen for strategic importance. Most importantly, it places them a short distance from the cockpit.
The door to the cockpit, the requirement was before the airplane moves, is supposed to be locked. The problem is the door can be kicked in.
Well, this was a commando-style operation, so everything was planned and deliberate. The plan was to have it happen in seconds.
They were soldiers. I mean, they saw what they were doing as a military mission. They knew they were going to die.
At 7:58 a.m., United Airlines Flight 175, a Boeing 767 packed with over 11,000 gallons of jet fuel, pushes back from the gate. 56 passengers and 9 crew members are on board.
I just had a bad feeling. Something is going to happen. It's not going to be good.
At 8:14 a.m., air traffic controllers at Boston's Logan Airport clear United 175 for takeoff, 14 minutes late. Ahead of 175 that morning is American Airlines 11, which took off at 8 o'clock.
And on board American 11 were Mohammed Atta and his team of hijackers.
As Flight 175 starts to climb, American 11 has just leveled off at 26,000 feet. Boston Air Traffic instructs Flight 11 to climb to 35,000 feet. There's no response.
Right after 8:14, the hijacking of American 11 begins. The muscle hijackers seated in the front storm the cockpit, somehow gain entry. More than likely they killed the pilot and co-pilot by slitting their throats, and then bring Mohammed Atta up to the front to fly the plane.
Air traffic controllers at Boston Center repeatedly try to reach Flight 11. There is no reply. Then, at 8:21 a.m., the transponder on Flight 11 abruptly shuts off.
Every airplane that flies in the United States and overseas has what is called a transponder on board. It's a discrete code that they can actually input in, which sends us a code back that we're allowed to track.
They had it apparently in their heads that they were going to make these airplanes invisible by doing this. Well, that's not true. They certainly make it more difficult for air traffic control to follow it.
And we could still keep a tag on them and follow the track of the aircraft. But we have no idea what his altitude is. And his last reported altitude, he was cleared to 29,000 feet, which is flight level 290.
I was always wondering if they had a small handheld GPS device on board which they were just able to input the coordinates of the city.
Even without that, it would have been a fairly simple thing to watch outside, make a turn to the south, the West Coast bound flights, and then start looking for the outline of New York City.
As air traffic in Boston Center, which has noticed that the transponder is off, has tried repeatedly to contact American 11, all of a sudden at about 8:24, they hear a suspicious transmission.
We have some planes, just stay quiet and you'll be okay. We're returning to the airport.
The voice coming from Flight 11 is believed to be that of Mohammed Atta, who is piloting the plane.
He's trying to calm the passengers by telling them that this is a hijacking like all the others. Clearly they would have some demands, but they're going back to the airport and everything would be fine.
Nobody move. Everything will be okay. If you try to make any move, you'll injure yourself and the airplane. Just stay quiet.
What he was attempting to do was to talk to the passengers. You can tell that by what he said. But the fact was he transmitted it in the open on a radio frequency.
The pilots of United 175 were originally on the same frequency as American 11. So they actually heard all the transmissions being made by Atta at the time.
When you hear something weird on the radio as a pilot, and we do quite often, you may look at each other and go, what the heck was that? But unless there's something to link it to, you're probably not going to say anything more about it.
The pilots of United 175 don't report the suspicious transmission right away. But at Boston Center, alarm bells are going off. Air traffic controller John Hartling takes over tracking Flight 11.
Everybody in the facility kind of knew that there was something really wrong at this particular point. You got an American airliner at 29,000 feet. His transponder's not working, and he was flying at great speed, and he's not talking to anybody.
Boston Center now assumes Flight 11 has been hijacked. Normally in these situations, pilots would input a specific code.
And it blinks up and shows emergency on our radar scopes. And there's a code also they can put up there for hijack. And it shows and it reads hijack on our scope. But in this case, he just turned the transponder off, so we had no code at all.
At 8:38, the military liaison from Boston's FAA Center calls the Northeast Air Defense Sector in Rome, New York, and reports that there's a hijacking.
And I saw that it was the FAA line that was blinking. So I knew at that point, this really is a call from the FAA. And I picked up the line and identified myself to the Boston Center controller. And he said, he was very, he was kind of stumbling a bit. You could tell he was very concerned.
All right, Boston Center, TMU. We have a problem here. We have a hijacked aircraft headed towards New York. And we need someone to scramble some F-16s or something up there to help us out.
Is this real world or exercise?
No, this is not an exercise manifest.